What got me into coaching is actually I feel like many people in Austin in the tech world can relate to this. I was in sales. I had an entry level role in a tech sales SDR position, and I did really well in that role, but really didn't like the actual job itself, even though I did it really well. And I knew I didn't want to go like full time into the traditional sales ladder path of being an SDR, then an AE, and going on. But I really enjoyed the company and the people that I worked with and the skills that I was learning. And I would always tackle on projects, like extra types of projects that would help me feel engaged and feel energized at work, which usually was teaching other people new things, whether it's new hires as a buddy to these new hires, or whether there's like new products and I would become the subject matter expert and teach them to others and all that. I always enjoyed doing that. So a different career pattern or ladder in the company I was at was to be a coach and help people, help new hires, and then help move the middle performers to top performers and all that. And that was really interesting, and I really enjoyed doing that because you're really truly helping people. And unlike my previous experience teaching English to 12 to 16-year-olds as their second language, they don't really want to know, like to learn. They kind of just want to go and be teenagers. I was working with people that were very motivated to learn, and they really wanted to do better. And I really enjoyed working with those types of people. So what it really came down to then was, how can I be the most effective in teaching people their things so that they can go do their jobs? And it was especially interesting to start thinking about the psychology of how to get people to learn and how to keep them engaged, especially when I became a coach right around the COVID time, when work remote was a brand new thing and remote learning was a brand new thing. And at that point, we are inundated with all this technology, right? And so many distractions. You're on the screen for the first time. And when I started facilitating, and then eventually I would facilitate sessions with cohorts of people and then do one-on-one coaching. When you're facilitating a session, people always say that time is your most important asset. And it is in many cases. But in the facilitation world, time's not your most important asset. Your attention span is what's most important, because your time's mandated. You have to be in attendance of this facilitation session of whatever topic it is. And then that means that the facilitator is competing against any possible thing on the internet, like your to-do list, your texts, Amazon, that like anything you could possibly do on the internet. The facilitator trying to teach you about pipeline generation is competing for your attention span, right? So you have to make the content so engaging and so interesting that you're essentially selling your content to your audience who's buying it with their attention span to learn. And the consequence of not doing a good job of that, for me personally as a facilitator, and then as a coach to do one-on-one coaching sessions and that, if I taught a session on sales pipeline or methodology or discovery or whatever it might be, and then people didn't absorb that content, like Amazon Prime won, Slack won, they got too distracted, they weren't paying attention, then I have 30-minute one-on-one coaching sessions with 11 people after that, and I have to reteach them that content in a one-on-one way. So I was very motivated to make the learning path, the content, the delivery so effective, so that it made my job easier, because that way I can actually work on other things in one-on-one coaching sessions instead of redoing the content that we were meant to learn as a group.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you were that's a good way of aligning you. What else would you work on in these one-on-ones?
In the coaching sessions?
Yeah. So it's basically like you have this group session
Mm-hmm.
where you teach, this is a new product, this is the new thing, like this is how we use it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to meet with each person individually after that.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. So in the specific niche of coaching that I was doing back in this time, it was sales coaching, which is quite different than business coaching or life coaching or sports coaching, I guess. So it was pretty specific to sales process, and like, let's see all the systems you're using to see how effective you're being and if you could be more effective, or sales methodology, like how are you pitching, what's going on, pretty technical stuff like talk listen ratio and those kinds of things. So pretty specific sales things is what I was coaching. But kind of beneath all that is a really cool distinction of what it means to be a coach versus a manager. because I feel like the specific role I was in was half management, but really like fully about the person and their development. What was more important to me than whether a person was hitting quota or not was their underlying motivation and what gets them excited, and trying to tap more into that so that they, as a byproduct, are more successful and are hitting or achieving quota and all that. But the coach has a really unique ability to focus in on that aspect of a person's development, whereas a manager is kind of obligated to care about that, but at the end of the day, hit the bottom line. That's what's the most important. And that's what, when you're a coach, it's really great to be able to get at then, what are the underlying motivations for someone? Because like an example, this is a very SDR specific example. SDR is sales development, cold caller for cold calling. But an example is if someone is not making enough dials and they're not dialing during peak dialing hours, a more manager director approach would be essentially mandating that they do that. A more coach approach is to get them to understand, wait, why am I doing this job to begin with? Is it financial? Is it to hone skills or whatever it might be? And okay, if that's my overarching goal, like that's why I'm doing this job. What's going to make me the most successful in this job, the most efficiently? Okay, it might be like calling during the times that are most effective to call. Okay, when am I calling? I'm calling during times that are not as effective. Okay, what are ways to then make the most use of your dials when you do pick up the phone and call? Oh, probably during peak calling hours. Great. When is that? Like, oh, it's at this time. Okay, awesome. Like, what behaviors can you change to then make the most use of it? But that entire time, the person is the one driving the conversation and coming to the conclusions of, if I start changing my behavior to, in this very SDR specific example, call during the morning times, during peak calling hours to get better results, that's going to help me achieve the overarching goal of why I'm here in the first place. Okay, and then now the coach can make an accountability kind of plan and pull that out from someone. But in that case, the whole entire time, the big emphasis is the coach is empowering individuals' autonomy and strengthening it and directing it and clarifying it in a way that's going to help that person achieve their goals. And the coach is like a guide, if you will, and someone that walks alongside them to help them get to that goal or outcome.
Yeah. Has that honed your ability to find that in yourself? Coaching others, has that increased your own autonomy? And
yeah, absolutely. But we all have such strong blind sides, so it's so important to get that reflected back at me sometimes, to do that. But the awareness helps for sure. At least knowing the awareness, having it reflected back is really helpful. But I get coaching sessions from other coaches as well, and it's funny because it's such a reoccurring question is like, what do you want? What does Joe want? And those simple questions are really hard to answer. They're particularly hard to answer because sometimes you want someone else to tell you the answer, but some of the hardest questions are ones that only you can answer because that's the nature of what the question is. So yeah, having someone help me kind of unpack and dive into, wait, what is it that I want? And what am I doing? Is that in alignment with what I want? That can be pretty tough, but it's cool to know the tools, but it's still important to have someone help me use them sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.